My name's Daniel Reyes. I'm 32. I stock shelves at a grocery store in Queens, and I'm late on rent again. That's the kind of guy the first am. The type who worries more about keeping the lights on than chasing adventure. I tell you that, so you'll understand why I didn't just walk away when I should have. I had just finished the closing shift, feet aching, palms raw from breaking down boxes. My head was already on my kid brother Miguel, who I promised I'd help with his college applications this weekend, and my mom, who still called twice a day to remind me about church. I wasn't thinking about danger. I was thinking about being responsible for once in my life. The subway was nearly empty, a Wednesday past midnight. I was heading down the stairs when I heard it, a child crying, faint, echoing from the tunnel itself, not the platform. High-pitched, cutting through the hum of the lights. I froze. That station's end was sealed years ago after a derailment. Everyone knew it. Nobody was supposed to be down there. But the crying kept going. I swear it sounded like Miguel when he was little, thin, desperate, like he'd lost his mom in a store. My chest tightened. I'd spent my whole life screwing up with my brother, letting him grow up faster than he should have. Leaving now, pretending I didn't hear, felt like another failure stacked on the pile. I walked toward the end of the platform. The crying stopped. The silence was worse. That's when I saw it. The gate that should have been locked. Padlock snapped clean in half. Twisted metal glittering under the fluorescence. My first thought was, someone forced their way in. My second was uglier, or something forced its way out. I pulled out my phone. No service, of course. My thumb hovered over the flashlight, but I didn't switch it on. I could see just enough in the dark to catch what looked like small footprints in the dust leading down into the tunnel. Here's the first truth I need you to understand, because it's the moment everything turned. Those weren't child-sized at all. Not really. They looked small because they were missing toes. Each print cut short, rounded, like stumps pressed into the dirt. I should have left. I should have told myself that no crying child could survive down there, not in that airless dark. But I didn't, because I couldn't get Miguel's voice out of my head. So I ducked under the gate and stepped into the tunnel. The air shifted the second I ducked under that gate, thicker, wetter, like the tunnel itself was exhaling into my lungs. The crying was gone, but I swore I could still feel the sound vibrating inside my ribs, the way you still hear a smoke alarm after it shuts off. I told myself I'd only go a few steps in, shine my phone once, confirm it was nothing. Then I'd climb back out and laugh at how easily guilt tricked me. But the tracks stretched forward in a shallow curve, swallowing the light from the platform behind me until there was only black ahead. The dust crunched under my sneakers, those half-prints dragging me further in. I kept glancing back at the gate, measuring the distance. Every few steps I promised myself, 5 more feet, and then I'll turn around. I never did. That's when I noticed it. One of the prints wasn't dusty at all. It was wet, glossy. I crouched, touched it with my finger before I could stop myself. Sticky, dark. Metallic on my tongue before my brain screamed what I'd done. Blood. I staggered back, my skull buzzing, throat dry. A memory hit me sharp. Miguel at 12, splitting his eyebrow open on the corner of a busted radiator in our old apartment. I'd been the one who froze, panicked, while Mom wrapped his head in towels and screamed at me to call 911. I'd never moved fast enough when he needed me. And here I was again, hesitating, staring at blood while someone could be dying deeper in. I gripped my phone tighter, finally thumbing on the flashlight. The beam cut through the dark and landed on something that didn't make sense. The footprints didn't just lead forward, they doubled back. The bloody ones were pointing the wrong direction, back toward the platform I'd just left. My stomach dropped. I spun around, light sweeping the way I'd come. The tunnel was empty, silent, but the dust was fresh, scuffed, disturbed. Someone or something had walked past me in the dark while I was staring at the floor. I don't know how long I stood frozen before the quiet broke. A low scrape echoed from ahead, like bare skin dragging along concrete. Slow, deliberate. My pulse thrashed in my ears. "Hello?" My voice came out thin, pathetic. I hated myself for sounding afraid, for sounding exactly how Miguel always teased me when I backed out of rides at Coney Island. No answer, just another scrape, closer. I tightened my grip on the phone, shining the light further down. That's when the second truth revealed itself. Something nobody ever told me about that derailment years ago. The tunnel wasn't sealed past the bend. The wall that was supposed to block it off was gone. Nothing but an arch, yawning open into more black. That realization twisted something in my gut. Because if that wall wasn't real, if it was only ever a story, then everything I'd believed about this place was wrong. And whatever was making that scraping sound wasn't trapped here at all. The sound grew louder. I swallowed hard, stepped forward, just once. And the crying started again. But this time, it wasn't behind me, it was coming from the darkness ahead. The crying ahead of me cut through the tunnel like it was piped through the concrete itself. Every instinct I had screamed, "Don't move," but my legs twitched anyway, one step then another, until the beam of my phone stretched far enough to catch the outline of the missing wall. It wasn't just an archway, it was jagged, like the bricks had been eaten away from the inside. The edges were damp, slick with some kind of dark moss. I pressed my palm to it for balance and felt warmth, like body heat radiating off stone. I yanked my hand back, wiping it against my jeans, but the sensation clung to my skin. The crying cracked into a laugh. High, shrill, the way kids do when they're trying to scare each other, but it echoed too long, too wide, like the tunnel itself was mocking me. My chest tightened. I thought of Miguel again, 6 years old, hiding behind doors, waiting to jump out just to see me flinch. That was our thing. He'd scare me. I'd pretend to be furious. Mom would tell me to be the big brother, not the big baby. But here, hearing that laugh twist out of the dark, I realized something I didn't want to admit. Miguel's laugh never echoed like that. I raised the flashlight higher, stepped past the edge of the wall, and the ground shifted under my feet. Not concrete anymore. Wooden planks, damp, bowing slightly under my weight. My throat locked. There hadn't been wood down here in decades. That's when I noticed something worse. The footprints I'd been following, they weren't scattered anymore. They lined up, perfect, one after another, like whoever, or whatever, made them wanted me to follow. I whispered to myself, "This is stupid. You're being set up." But I kept going. Because turning back felt like admitting I'd always been the coward my brother thought I was. Another scrape, this time directly behind me. I spun, nearly dropping the phone. The tunnel behind was empty. I listened so hard my eardrums throbbed. Nothing, just my own pulse, too fast, too loud. And then, breath, warm, against the back of my neck. I whipped around, light slicing through empty air, and stumbled forward. My sneakers slid on the damp planks, and I went down hard, knees slamming against the wood. Pain tore through my leg, hot and immediate. I sucked in a sharp breath, and that's when my light caught something I'll never unsee. The prints didn't end. They multiplied. 3 sets, then 5, then dozens, all branching from the one path, spilling out in every direction like veins. And every single one of them was fresh. I forced myself to stand, knee throbbing, weight uneven, and here's the truth that froze me cold. Some of those footprints weren't human at all, not missing toes, not injured, split in half, curling at the edges, like hooves pressed into wet earth. The crying stopped. and from every direction I heard the sound of bare feet and hooves stepping in perfect rhythm, closing in. The sound of those steps, light, uneven, wet, filled every inch of the tunnel. My phone beam shook in my grip, jerking across the planks, catching only fragments. A smudge of blood, a plank warped and splitting, the shimmer of condensation that looked too much like sweat dripping from the walls. My knee throbbed with each movement, every shift of weight firing a warning shot of pain up my thigh. I tried to steady my breathing, but it came out ragged, shallow, making me louder than whatever was stalking me. I thought of Mom then, her voice when she prayed over me before I left for shifts. Soft, tired, still believing her oldest son could be something other than a disappointment. I'd laughed her off 1,000 times, but now her words clung to me like armor I didn't deserve. The footsteps stopped all at once, silence so thick it pressed against my chest. I whispered, "Where are you?" and instantly regretted giving myself away. That's when the reveal hit me. My flashlight cut across the wall beside me, graffiti. Not new, not teenagers tagging for fun. Old, faded, eaten by damp. But I recognized the letters because they weren't random. They spelled names. Not dozens, hundreds. Scrawled one over the other, layered so thick the wall looked like a living ledger. And near the bottom, one name froze me solid. Miguel Reyes. I blinked hard, leaned in, my brain screaming that it wasn't possible. My brother was alive, upstairs in our mother's apartment, stressing about deadlines and scholarships. But the paint was there, carved deep into brick, letters shaky but unmistakable. My chest rattled with a sob I couldn't control. Daniel. The voice came from the dark ahead, my brother's voice. Not the cry of a child, not the warped laugh, but his real voice. Older, steady, exactly how he'd sounded the night before when he asked me not to be late helping him this weekend. I staggered forward, half limping, ignoring the pain. "Miguel?" My throat cracked. "It's me!" The phone beam jittered ahead, and for the briefest moment, I saw him, standing just beyond the planks where the tunnel dipped lower. Same height, same messy hair, same old hoodie I'd seen him wear 1,000 times. He lifted his hand in a slow wave. And then the truth shredded me. The light hit his arm, and it wasn't his arm at all. It was longer, joint bent backwards, fingers splitting at the tips like the tracks of those hoofed prints I'd seen. The hoodie hung loose over something too tall, too thin. I dropped the phone. The beam spun wild, catching nothing but warped wood and endless black. My hands fumbled blind, scrambling for it, nails tearing on damp planks. When I found it again, I raised the light. The thing wearing my brother's voice was gone. But the footprints had moved. They weren't leading deeper anymore. They circled me. My knee gave out, and I collapsed to the floor, tears mixed with the blood dripping down my shin. My phone buzzed once. Battery warning, 10%. That's when I realized the most terrifying truth yet. The crying, the laughter, the voice, they weren't luring me deeper. They were keeping me from going back. My phone screen dimmed, as if it too wanted me blind. 10% left. The circle of prints tightened around me, fresh in the wet planks though I hadn't heard a single step. My knee screamed each time I tried to crawl, my palms slick with sweat and blood, but stopping felt worse. Stopping meant giving them permission. I whispered my brother's name again, but softer this time, as if saying it any louder might summon that thing back wearing his skin. My chest hurt, the way it did when I used to smoke too much after late shifts, like every breath was a punishment for all the years I wasted. I thought of Miguel filling out those scholarship forms, the ones I promised I'd help with but never did. I thought of Mom waiting at the kitchen table, lights low to save on the bill, telling me for the 100th time that family was the only thing that mattered. That was the worst part. The tunnel wasn't just killing me, it was using my failures as bait. The sound returned, but this time not crying. Whispers. Too many to count. Some low, some sharp, all of them pressing against my skull from every direction. I knew none of the words, but I knew the tone. Hungry, expectant, like gamblers watching dice roll. I swung the flashlight across the tunnel and froze. The graffiti, the names, had changed. Where before it was faded paint, now the bricks glistened wet, the letters written fresh. And near the very bottom, beneath Miguel's name, was a new one, scrawled in long strokes, Daniel Reyes. My stomach clenched so hard I nearly vomited. I hadn't touched the wall, I hadn't written it. But there it was, carved deeper than any other, already drying dark. I scrambled backward, dragging my bad leg, but the planks groaned loud enough to make the whispers swell. My phone flickered, the light cutting in and out, showing faces in fragments, pale, bent wrong. Too many mouths. Some small, like children, others tall and hunched, all pressed close but never fully seen. One of them leaned close enough for me to catch its eyes. My eyes. Same brown, same shape, my reflection stitched onto something not me. That's when the final truth dropped, the one that made everything click. The derailment, the sealed wall, the stories of people disappearing on late trains. It was never an accident, never about broken tracks. This tunnel wasn't abandoned. It was fed. And I was already on the list. The light blinked one last time before the battery died. In the half-second before darkness swallowed me, I saw all those faces lean in, smiling with mouths that weren't theirs. I screamed until my throat ripped. But I don't think anyone up there heard me. And if you're hearing this, if my voice somehow made it back up from that tunnel, remember the title. First signs matter. Do not go down into the subway tunnel. They're waiting for you to ignore them, the way I did. If you want more stories like mine, real warnings, real mistakes that people never came back from, then stay with this channel. Subscribe, leave a comment, share what you would have done. Maybe telling these stories is the only way someone else makes it out alive. Because once your name is written on those walls, it never comes off.